Welcome back. Well, the phones have been running hot about our next guest over the last couple of days. You've met him on Monday and Tuesday, and now meet the Wednesday, by public demand, American family counsellor Clayton Barbeau. You've met Barbie now?
I watched her in the green room.
Interesting story, Clayton?
A very moving story. Yeah,
there's one question from the audience that Barbie was asked whilst we had that commercial break. The question was, do you wish you'd known when you were a child? And what was your answer, Barbie?
I do believe that you should know from an early age, because there'll always be somebody prepared to tell you, and it gets harder to face the reality of it, not belonging in a family as you get older. So you should know from early age.
Well, we're talking marriage today, particularly, aren't we? And all marriages obviously start up optimistically these days, and everyone wishes to stay with their partner until the end of time, as it were. What happens, usually?
Well, they become husband and wife. And, and husband and wife is a whole different thing from the relationship that preceded it, which is why some people can live together for years, become husband and wife, and divorce. Because the moment they marry, old tapes begin to play of the husband-wife relationship they grew up with. To give you an example, and their response to it. To give you an example, a while back I had a woman who came into therapy, brought her husband in, and she said, every time I try to talk to him, every single time I try to talk to him, he gets up and leaves the room. Now, he looked like he wanted to get up and leave the room.
I felt as I was back home.
I said, yeah. I said, do you want to get up and leave the room? He said, you bet your life I do. I said, when did you decide to get up and leave the room when your wife shouted at you? He said, I guess I was 4 years old. She, of course, almost fell off the chair. I said, you want to talk about that? He said, well, my parents screamed at one another a lot. I was an only child. It terrified me. I used to hide under the bed or in the closet. When I got old enough, I got out of the house. And I promised myself, if I ever grew up and got married, I would never scream at my wife or yell at my wife. Now, she didn't know she was yelling, because she was from an Italian-Irish marriage. And they thought they were communicating when they shouted that way, and she thought that that was what wives did. She learned that from her parents, so we got her to lower the volume, and he stayed in the room. Now, that's called awareness, factor. But a lot of people are unaware of how those old tapes come into play from the early marriage education course that they have. And that's one of them, one of the changes that takes place.
Yesterday we tried some questions from the audience. Admittedly, we got to only one because of time restrictions, but after the show there were a number of people who wanted to ask questions. I'm hoping today's audience is feeling much the same way. John Deeks is pointing one of the lasses in the front row. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, Clayton, would you still recommend arranged marriages? Because I have arranged marriage. I've been married for 10 years, got 2 lovely kids, and I got married at the age of 16.
Arranged marriages, you mean by the parents?
Yes, my father and my mum.
I don't know if I would necessarily recommend them, but they had a lot going for them, because today one of the problems about people who commit matrimony is that they usually do it in a vacuum, without any input from their parents or their family background or any acknowledgement that there are differences there. And in fact, if you try to dissuade them and say this person might not be the proper choice, that's like throwing gasoline on the fires of their passion. Rather than arranged marriages, I would sure like to see more people who are about to get married really consult with their parents and other knowledgeable people. Even go to a marriage counselor, which is becoming even more popular in the United States, where engaged couples will come in and talk to a marriage counselor about problems that they foresee.
Okay, any other questions in the audience? Yes, sir, did you have one?
Yeah, mine was about teenage.
Yeah, certainly, we'll go to
okay?
Ask it, please.
Well, I get on well with my parents, but some of my friends don't. They find that too much pressure is being putting on them to achieve and get good marks in school and that type of stuff. I was just wondering, why that's so.
Well, a lot of parents try to live out their own goals through their youngsters, and some are very well-meaning about it, but the pressure can be enormous for that kind of achievement, so it will resound to the parents' benefit. I try to encourage parents to understand that at about age 15, their basic role in their young person's life, aside from setting certain boundaries, it's their job to set boundaries so the kids actually grow up alive. It's the kid's job in adolescence to push against the boundaries, which creates friction in any healthy family, the kind of friction that you get a rock tumbler where you polish stones up with friction. We should come out more polished. At any rate, I try to encourage parents to appreciate the fact that we're trying to turn our kids into more than a parent-child relationship now, but a relationship of friends. I've been had by 8 children, and that's the existential experience, you know. It's really one of being had. People always say, he's had 8.
I like the way you say commit marriage, too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. People do that all the time. At any rate, and I once made the remark, I had 8 children because I wanted at least 6 pallbearers at my grave. At any rate, they're all friends of mine, which is what I think good parenting does. They're all good friends of mine. In fact, we had a little party before I came here, a little dinner party before I came to Australia this trip.
I believe you had a little party last night. A little birdie tells me you had dinner with some delightful ladies.
The ones on your show.
Chelsea Brown and Delilah.
You have wonderful quality.
It's dangerous, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
So where would you like to take Barbie this evening?
Yes. Can I ask you a question about relationships when they say that you should talk it out? What if the partner cannot express themselves and cannot talk about what's worrying them? How do you get it out of a person?
One of the things I don't allow clients to say to me is, I can't. They get to say, I don't choose to, I don't know how, and I don't want to right now, or whatever, but I can't is not permissible when we're talking about relationships. Then sometimes that's when you call in somebody like me, and you say, well, let's go to somebody else who might help you to express that. I've had people who, you know, I had a wife who was going to dump her husband because he didn't talk. People are always dumping people for the same reasons they married them. She married him because he was a wonderful listener. The first man that ever just listened to her all the time, you know. Then she discovered later he didn't talk. Oh, it's always happening, you know. At any rate, it took a good 20 minutes of work with him, and I would have to go into some sort of technical detail, and we don't have time for it, but I had to literally track him and say, I said, well, when she said she was going to dump him, she announced it in my presence. She hadn't told him before. I said, how do you feel about that? And he promptly said, well, I think she may do it. I said, I didn't ask you what you think. I asked you what you felt. He promptly began looking out here, you know, searching like he was reading a paper. I said, you won't find the answer out there. It's inside of you. He promptly scanned his memory. You know that if you're a therapist, what he's doing with his brain. And I said, you won't find it in the past. What are you feeling right now, this moment? Well, I guess she'll do it. I said, I didn't ask you what you guessed. What do you feel? And we finally got out of him that he felt sad and frightened. Mm-hmm. And I looked at her and she smiled. It was the first expression of feeling she'd ever heard from him. And I said, you see, there's hope.
That was the start of a new life.
That was the start of the beginning, yeah.
Clayton, it's been fascinating having you with us the last couple of days, and I must say the phones really have gone crazy after each appearance that you've had. And the one thing I did promise your Australian manager, Mary McNamara, that I haven't done it. She is the producer who's been looking after Clayton for the last couple of days, and she's not here today. She's back in the office, but I promised I'd say hello to her. The one thing I did promise too, I'd show some of your books. I mean, you've got more releases than Kamal here. You've got the art of loving. You've got Coping with Clayton Barbeau.
I like that title, Coping with Clay.
Yeah, Coping. We've been doing that for 3 days now. And Chelsea Brown last night and Delilah. The Joy of Marriage, a Teenager's Survival Kit.
There's also a book called Delivering the Mail, M-A-L-E.
Right. Yeah. And take all of those and you get this one free. This is Creating Family, Intimacy, Love and Sex.
That's the soundtrack of a film series that's on PBS in the States.
Clayton, it's been lovely meeting you. Thanks for being with us on the show the last 3 days.
Thank you.
And good luck with the lecture tour.
Thank you.
Clayton Barbeau. Thanks also to you, Barbie. Lovely to see you.